Okay. So welcome to this another night of Satsang. I think most of you already know what Satsang means. At least last time we spoke about it a little bit. I don't know if you're familiar with Satsang, but Satsang really means to be in the presence of truth. In the West, we don't really have a word for it, because the West has lost much of the ancient wisdoms. So Satsang is a word we still use, for lack of a Western word. There's different forms of satsangs. Most satsangs are known to be speaking satsangs, where whoever is leading the satsang or holding the satsang is using words. And in a way, words are massaging out all of the restlessness. Because satsang in a way is nothing other than meditation, but it's a speaking meditation in a way. Because the restless mind and the emotional pain body, because of its restlessness, it usually is really busy. And so when you use words, you're still kind of busy. You're giving the mind a few words, and you're massaging out and bringing the mind from more of the historical past, future, mental ideas. You're bringing it back, but it's still talking, or at least speaking. Because talking is talking about. It's like a roundabout. You're really going in circles around and never getting to the core, right? Whereas speaking is speaking of, you're speaking from that place. And so the next step from satsang would be guided meditation, which is a little bit more silent. You usually go into still using words, but you're going softer and quieter, pointing more towards the emptiness that we are before any of the movement. And finally you will go to actual meditation, which you could say is the absence of anything as much as possible, emptying out the mind and resting in the silent, the still place. True meditation really is nothing other than observing. You could say being aware of being aware. You know, we're aware, and instead of being aware of something, of a thought, of an emotion, of some idea of the future or the past, or some object, some sound, some song, some video, or anything, any object. Instead, just being really quiet and taking a few minutes or half an hour or 50, an hour, whatever you want, to be absolutely quiet. And so whatever comes up in that quietude, in that stillness, to drop that. Now tonight we're not going to do much of the deep meditation. We're just going to keep it to satsang and maybe do a little bit of guided meditation. Just speaking of this strange phenomenon. Now, I don't know why all of you are here. I know many of you. I don't know exactly what your history is in the search, if you wish, for the true nature of what we really are. But I'm assuming that for most of us, at least the case is that at some point in this mad existence, this world which is now going insane at so many levels, a world where politics, medicine, media, schooling systems, basically everything has gone mad. And most people accept that. That's fine. For most people, that's the normal way of living, the normal way of life, the normal way the world is functioning. And so they just say, what's wrong with that? You know, let's go to happy hour, let's do this, let's do that, let's buy some more stuff, and let's keep looting the oceans and looting the forests and mining more minerals and metals and everything we need. But for some of us, at some point, whether we know it or not, and sometimes you don't really know where you've reached and what point you've reached. For some of us, you come to that point where you want something more. At least you're looking for that place where you are content, fulfilled. happy, joyous, blissful, at rest, really. Whereas the place most people are now are restless. The human rat race is that, which is continuously running around, doing, getting, buying, building, until death do us part, which is usually too late to realize anything else by that time, because by then the only thing people know is restlessness, thinking, emotional turmoil. And so, but for those of us who have reached that point before, we're so frustrated that we either want to commit suicide or just don't know what the hell we're doing in this world anymore. You usually come to a place like this, which is there's many people speaking in these ways, where you speak about or speak to and of. That place where you are content. It's a placeless place. It's not really a location. It doesn't have a size or a taste or a smell. But it's the placeless place in which really the children, when they were young, were pure, were happy. But they were not conscious of it, so they got identified with all the man-made and mind-made objective non-realities, but relative realities, you could say, relative to the eyes, relative to the ears. A relative reality is always relating to something, so it's relative to the mind. And all these relative realities have absorbed and usurped all of the attention for most people. But when you get to that point where you think, what the hell am I doing in this world? And why is it such a madhouse? And I must find this other place that I somehow intuit at first. Most people will intuit at some point at least. There must be something more than what is presented on the news and by the schools and by this crazy world. So you come to a place like this, which is kind of funny. It's a contradiction. It's actually a little bit crazy, because what we're really looking for is what we already are. But because we're so identified with what we're not, we kind of seem to think, which is a weird contradiction, a paradox, that we need to find this other place. Of course, you can't really find what you are, because you are what you are. So most people at least get into this bind. A bind where here you are, you must find something more true than what you've known and what you've lived and what you've done and what the world is offering and what they're telling you that all life is about until you're 60 or 70 or 80 or God knows how long the physical organism may last. But you know, I've got to find something more than that. And yet you are already that. So it's a little bit of a paradox, quite a big paradox, probably the biggest contradiction of all. To how can you find what you already are? And it's really the mind that usually takes on the same function of finding the truth, when it really was the one who was brought everybody away from what they already are. You could say that from childhood, the mind and its emotional pain body, and all the unfaced, unresolved fractions, pieces of traumas really that occurred, because that's really what happens in youth, because our parents and our school teachers and almost nobody in this world knows anything about how the organism, both bodily, mentally, and spiritually functions. They don't have anything to say about it. So we just go to school, we learn our ABCs and 1, 2, 3s and all our fake history and some science, which is erroneous for most part, excluding consciousness, excluding awareness, excluding the origin of the very perceiver, who is the scientist who is looking at the experiment. Scientist doesn't even know what's looking, and yet he thinks he has the right to study something outside. And so the schools and all those things have introduced lots of dysfunction into our lives. And then this dysfunction becomes a normal mode of living. Living as a body-mind, and basically spirit's left all to the side. If you want to use those three words, they're just words, but let's just use the body, mind, and spirit as words. This world knows very little about the spirit. Most people on this planet. We know the body, the physical organism. Even that we don't know much about when it comes to real food and things like that. But then the mind, know even less about that. Most people. And the spirit is basically neglected almost completely in our society these days, no matter what society you go to. Even the Eastern societies today have become Western. What once used to be Eastern societies that lived very close, they left. They also went into the materialistic, money-making, factory-producing, all that stuff to try to fill this black hole which can never be filled unless you return to that place which is what you really are. And so the child picks up all these traumas and doesn't know how to deal with it. In a way, one of the best ways to say it is inner engineering. It's a word that's used by a man that speaks about these things as well, and he uses the word inner engineering. We really don't have any inner engineering. When we go and we draw a house and we build a house, we have AutoCAD programs. We print it and we have all kinds of tools that we use for building houses. But when it comes to building a sane and healthy mind, and then of course moving on to the next realm into the spirit, we don't have much tools. So the children really get traumatized, no matter how good your family was, no matter how dear and loving your family were, unless they were, and even if they were, truthful. They wouldn't been able to stop you from getting traumas. As small as they may be, they add up, and over time, the pain body grows, because the physical and mental and spiritual organism doesn't have the tools, doesn't even know where it's at in the beginning. The child doesn't even know where it's at. They get suppressed, which is what the Freudian and Jungian and Kahn type of Western philosophies about psychoanalysis and things like that present. These traumas get suppressed. Basically it said, look, I can't deal with this right now, so I'm going to store you down in what we would call this area right here in the stomach. You could say it's an inner body, the inner body, not the physical body, but the energetic body. And it says, okay, can't deal with this right now, boom. We'll deal with that later when we do have the tools. Because the parents don't have the tools, the child doesn't have the tools, the teachers don't have the tools. And so this pain body starts growing, and over the years, the child becomes more mental and still can't deal with this. Now, at some point, this pain body is such a turgid, heavy, constricted ball or knot of emotional tension that it doesn't really want to be looked at, because it's at least so tense and so uncomfortable, so inside of this area of this inner energetic body, that the mind starts taking on another function, which the mind is not our enemy, really. The mind is in a way our helper. But we learn language, we start thinking, and then this is just a tool we got, and it's a very good tool, very useful tool, and also it is for most people the tool that then finally ends up tormenting them the most. And so they end up thinking, worrying about the future, about how much money they might have, about all kinds of things, whether their body has cancer or not. And even if they feel one pain, a lot of people can go quickly into stress and strain and panic, convinced that they have cancer and they're going to die soon or whatever. Because this pain body that cannot be faced and could not be dealt with because the child didn't have the tools to deal with it, is so discomforting that the mind wants to make distractions. It wants to say, hey, over here, let's think about this, let's think about that, let's think about tomorrow, let's think about the holiday, let's remember that good day we had back then on the beach. It was so fun, and all the barbecues, and then the movies, and then the rat race has begun and endlessly goes faster. The TV programs go faster. Now when you have trailers and things, there may be 1 second fragments. I remember even when I was a child, There used to be a thing that went 10, 9, 8, 7, 6 until the next program started. Now it's faster and faster. Because at least when you're distracted from the pain body, this discomforting emotional pain body, then you're not looking at it. You don't have to face it. And so you keep running around and doing all kinds of things. Next holiday, next car. Some men in their midlife crisis start looking for the next wife and the next girlfriend, usually. Usually it's a girlfriend that's many years younger. But boats do the job for many, and cars do the more jobs, and new holidays, new houses, football, all of the entertainment, happy hour, Friday. Just to not have to sit quiet and be with what really is still unresolved. And so, in this world, most people are running. But they're running from themselves. They're running from both things that could be said. They're running from this pain body. They're running from this discomfortable sensation which they don't have the tools for. They never were given any of the tools. It's only when you come to places like this and start listening more about what the mind and how the mind functions and what the spirit is and what you truly are behind the scenes, behind all the objects, behind all the thoughts, behind all of the identifications with the body and the family and the job and everything. It's only when people are ready to start to confront this pain body that they can actually start doing the real work to come back home. Because you see, when you build a wall around this pain body, or when you distract yourself from this pain body, you also distract yourself from what you are. Because when the mind is over here thinking about something that makes you look that way instead of looking here and just being at rest and peace with what you truly are, then you're also looking away from your true nature, from your peace, from your silence, from your joy, from your well-being, from the pure sensation of just sitting and being and breathing, just being quiet with what already is perfect. Because this pain body will come up and immediately the mind will think, okay, emergency, the pain body is coming up, let's create a distraction. So we'll think about tomorrow's groceries or the holiday we still have to book or the this or the that or whatever you're busy with. Which is the mind which we usually see as the enemy, but in a way it's not really the enemy. He doesn't know any better. It's a mechanism, it's a function. It's an automated function. It just knows whenever the pain body is turning in like a washing machine, I just go and make distractions for you, because that's what you did for the child, because the child wasn't able to deal with it. But the question now is, are we ready to deal with it? And that is why we come to places like this, because really, at some point, if you keep running away from that suppressed pain body, those fragments of unresolved issues, then you're running from yourself, and therefore also running from your true nature. And it isn't until you confront the demons, your own demons, the demons that were left unfaced, the demons that were not looked at, the demons that were chucked down in the basement and said, look, can't deal with you now, but deal with you later. But if you just keep not dealing with them, they keep accumulating, and that's what's happening to the world. On a micro level, individually, we can see it in our own lives, the restlessness, the inability to just be still and enjoy life the way we used to do when we were children. And on a macro level, or collective level, we see it in the families, then with the neighbors, then with neighboring countries, or countries and neighboring countries, football teams and opposing football teams. Finally, the big wars that we're having both on the planet and possibly even off planet. And we have all kinds of division, suffering, war, turmoil, disturbance, pain, which is unnecessary. But of course, if the unfaced demons remain unfaced, then they will do their work unconsciously, you could say, or subconsciously, whatever you want to use as the word. Let's use unconscious for tonight. And in the unconscious, basically 95 to 98% of all your mannerisms are dictated by your unconscious. And so this pain body is pulling the strings. It makes you go and do all these things because it knows And the mind knows, you gotta stay away because I can't face it right now. But you have to face it at some time. And what does that mean? Are you gonna die? No, we're not gonna die. But the pain body has to die. But it doesn't really mean dying. Because those unresolved pieces of what we call the pain body or the emotional disturbances are just pieces of life or love that have been twisted into emotion or into pain. So the demons or the dark sides or whatever you want to call it, the Satan or the devil or anything, is nothing other than a twisted piece of love, what they would call fallen angels in some religions, right? The fallen angels were those angels that could not be faced. They were left down there, and they are not brought up to heal and turn back into love. So last time I think we were talking for a while when we were talking about the tattoo about alchemy, right? You mentioned the book, I forgot the name now, but you mentioned the book about alchemy. True alchemy was always the transmutation of that emotional pain back into love. Facing the unresolved skeletons in the closet, facing the unresolved pain body and turning it back into love. And so, Satsang is a place where the intention is to hold that space as much as we can. It is the intention that we all have together to not steer off and veer off into mental projections of past and future, projections of who you think you were, of the child that you grew up in your parents, and this timeline type of mental activity which draws you away from your true nature. But the satsang is the place where we intentionally hold the space of presence. And although words do that job, continuously saying, whoop, we're looking at now, we're looking at this, we're looking at what we are. We're not diverting ourselves, we're not distracting ourselves, we're not allowing anybody else to distract us. We are holding our attention in this time for this amount of time that we're together, as much and as long as possible. And even after when we leave, as much as we can, we're holding to this space where the wind is felt and the leaves are heard and the fan is heard. And you may be aware of your breathing. And then you could go into a meditative state, which could say a guided meditation. And for this I would want you to close your eyes. If you want, please close your eyes. Your eyes are the main distraction, because the eyes are about 80% of all your input from the outside. And then you've got the sound, but sound you cannot really shut off unless you put earplugs in. So we don't put earplugs in, especially if I'm speaking. But mostly sounds don't really distract unless you're at a New York crossway or some other busy place. In fact, many sounds can be really relaxing. And we come back to what we truly are without any of the decorations of the mind. Usually, because I've been speaking for a couple of minutes, you're already quite relaxed. But a good way to relax the body is to comb out any of the tensions that you might have in the body. And the way we comb out is we use our inner eye, which is really only your attention if you wish. Let's call it your attention for now. You're looking, but not with the eyes, but you're looking with the attention. And you're looking at the tip of your nose. Can you feel the tip of your nose? How do you know that your nose is alive? You don't have to touch it. You don't have to feel it with any of your hands or anything like that. Is your tip of your nose there? Can you look, in other words, with the inner eye at the inner sensation of the aliveness of your nose? Now go to the lips. You'll notice the lips are very sensitive. It's what we talk with, what we eat with, what we kiss with. Very sensitive part of the body, and therefore the inner body is also very easy to feel, to sense, really. Can you feel the aliveness? It's a kind of tingling, a very fine vibration. Can you feel the cheeks? The cheekbones are also very sensitive. Can you feel the eyes? There may be some tension in the eyes. The eyes are used so much and often squinted, especially with the sun we have on these islands. The eyes may have some tension, so drop all the tension out of the eyes. When I say drop the tension, it means just allow it to just sink down, basically towards the belly. Your stomach doesn't only digest physical food, but it also digests any of the stress and strains. So when you have tensions, drop it down towards the belly. There is in the belly what is called a psycho-spiritual flame. You can sometimes even feel it. It's like a candle flame, and it burns up any tensions. This is what the animals do, like dogs. When they had a fight, they lick their wounds. And what it means is they go into a quiet corner and they allow the tensions of the distress of the fight to drop down. And so they come right back to their natural state. Instead of storing it, allowing it to become a pain body, not suppressing it, but just dropping it down. Now look at the inside of your throat. The throat can be a constrictive area as well. This is where most of you, as you were children, and you had a strong emotional encounter, you may not be able to speak anymore and you might have choked up. So the throat has a little bit of emotion. So drop all the tension out of the throat, drop it down. Now I want you to feel your hands. The hands are very sensitive. Can you feel the inner sensations of your hands? How do you know your hands are even there? Look, not with the eyes, keep the eyes closed, but look with the inner eye and feel your hands. Very sensitive, very strong, present sensation. This is your inner body. You could call it your energetic body, whatever you want to call it. It doesn't really matter what you call it, but just feel the aliveness of it. Don't stick to any of the words. They are all secondary. In fact, they are usually obstructions. So just feel the sensation of your hands. In fact, you could go as fine as feeling the nail on your thumb of your right hand. You can feel the nail of your right hand's thumb. That's how precise you can look with your inner eye at your inner body. Of course, in this world, we're usually looking outward and therefore avoiding going in. Now you can feel the shoulders. Shoulders often have some tension in it, especially because we wield a lot of things, we carry things. So a lot of people need massages of the shoulders. The most common massage place probably shoulders. Dropping all the tension out of your shoulders. Relaxing the body. A really good tool that you can use while I'm pointing your attention towards the relaxation of the body and any body part we're looking at is to also hold your breathing. Breathing is probably the most common exercise used for meditation. Just take in nice deep breaths and try to breathe as deep as you can into the stomach area, which is really the diaphragm. You're not breathing with the muscles of your lungs, but you're breathing down deep into the tummy, the diaphragm. It's a special muscle down in the tummy that pulls down to open up and pull in the air. The more oxygenated your body is through good breathing, the more relaxed the body can actually be, and therefore the more relaxed the mind can also be, because you are well oxygenated. This is the main reason for sitting up straight. There's no real need in most cases for special postures of meditation, but if you sit up straight, at least your diaphragm is free, so you can breathe nice and deeply down. So take a nice deep breath into the diaphragm and breathe out, and as you breathe out, relax. Drop any tension in the body when you breathe out. You notice the tension in any body part when you breathe in, and you drop that tension as you breathe out. Now feel the feet. While you breathe in, notice the sensation in your feet. Feet don't really have any tension in them usually, unless you've been standing all day. Breathing in deeply into the diaphragm and breathing out. The reason these acts or activities, if you wish, are practiced are to bring you back to something that is now. Thinking always is about something that's not now. You can literally never ever think about anything that is now. You can just be now and observe, see, be aware of, be conscious of what is. Thinking is always one step behind. It's always, like they say, an echo, sur echo. So why we focus on the breathing and the sensation in the body is because you know for a fact that that means your attention is staying with the presence, because it's now, the well-being in your body, the breathing, the sounds of the wind going through the palm trees and the leaves, even the fan. All of it is now. And so the exercise is really to become again acquainted with, to become comfortable again with this beautiful silent place of stillness, of awareness, whatever word you like, consciousness, love, God, joy, bliss. I don't care what words we use, whatever one you might have taken a liking to. I like sensation, well-being. Just rest in the well-being of the inner body. Feeling the hands and breathing, feeling the lips. Your whole body is sensating. It's not a feeling, it's not an emotion, it's just a very fine tingling vibration of aliveness. This is a quiet, nice, beautiful, joyous place to rest. For most people in the world, they never really rest here anymore. Once they've reached puberty, and afterwards they go almost continuously from the morning when they wake up until the moment they fall asleep. Their attention is never really with this quiet, silent place, but always with the thinking, always with the objective, externalized world. And so the restlessness just piles up and up. But here in this quiet, silent place, all is well. This is really coming home. The exercise, of course, is to always, the moment you notice you've gone off into any thought about anything, just to come back and relax again, back into this nice quiet space. Focus on the breathing again if you need to. Feel the well-being of the inner body if you need to. This is an exercise which people call meditation, an exercise of returning home, returning to the pre-existent state, the state before you identify with any specific object. Now, these sensations and the breathing are subtle objects. They are objects, but they're not in the past or in the future. They're not emotional, unless the pain body is coming to the surface, the tension comes to the surface. That could be upsetting a little bit. But there's always the well-being. The body is never really affected in a grand way by this restless pain body, these disturbing, suppressed emotions, this unfaced, unresolved demons. So keep the well-being always there. Even if you're disturbed by the pain body, also just relax and feel the well-being and surround the pain body, surround the tension, if there is any, dropping the tension to that flame into the stomach, and otherwise just surrounding it with well-being. Your body is just pure joy. And some people, of course, have some minor pains or some more pains. Some people do have pains because of physical pains, but it's not suffering. Suffering really only comes from the mind. But pain, it can be there. It can also be used as a tool to ground you, to anchor you, because that's really what we're doing in meditation. You're anchoring yourself to something that is now. Some subtle object, if it is. The well-being of your body, the breathing, even the pain can be an anchor because it is taking place now. This is basically a guided type of meditation. You can open your eyes at any moment if you want to. You can also keep your eyes closed. It doesn't matter. Whatever you feel relaxed with. Remembering that the eyes are a big cause of distraction. And so if you enjoy keeping your eyes closed, you're always free to do so at any time. So this is kind of a meditation. I've taken you from the beginning basically into a satsang, speaking, and then more into a guided meditation. And I also encourage a diligent or frequent practice of the deepest meditation you can, which is the meditation where you're not even really using any of the props if you can. Props are basically these tools, these anchors, where you hold something that's here and now and good, so that you're not distracted by anything that's not here and usually not good. Because the mind, no matter how good your story is about where you're going or where you've been, it will soon lead to some kind of trouble, some kind of historical memory of pain. It will lead you to some kind of lack of money, some kind of worry. Now the funny thing is that what we already are, this pure state of presence, of silence, of peace, where there is no suffering, where there is no worry, where there is nothing wrong at all. Because right now, no matter what you think about, that's not now here. This is here now. There is no ISIS here. There is no economic collapses here. There's no end of the world here. There's nobody robbing us here. There's no lack of food, so we're not hungry. Most of us will have probably eaten probably every day of our life. I think most of us probably have never slept on the street in the rain or something, or went to bed without completely nothing to eat unless it was voluntarily because of fasting or something. Most of us probably in our entire life have never had a day of hunger. But the mind will have thought about these things a million times. A million times where we were going to lack, where we were going to be short, where we were going to be without money, without food, and where our business was going to go bankrupt, and our kids were going to get sick, and all the things that the mind has thrown up. I know for a fact that I know a lady that was raped when she was young, and God forbid, these things of course are horrible. But since she was raped, she has thought about it more than 1,000 times, probably over 5,000 times in her life. She thinks about it even every day, several times, so you can do the math after 10 years or 20 years. How many times her mind will have raped her and reminded her of the rape. So mostly, it is our own mind that causes the trouble. It's our mind that will think of all these scenarios and cause the suffering where there is none. When really at the same time, at that same moment where there will be suffering, because something will have been introduced by the mind that's not here, at that same moment, you can be feeling the well-being of your inner body. You can be listening to the breeze of the trees, feeling the sensation of your hands, just breathing and being quiet. This state is always here. Without the thinking mind, without the emotional disturbance, without the psychological continuity of this so-called mind-body entity of thinking, which does not really exist at all, but this function of memory, regurgitating, all constantly bringing up these things that have already passed, that have already happened, and into this situation of now, which is not here now. The things it brings, it's not here now. So it is really the cause of covering over what is already pure and silent and quiet and good and joyous and blissful and everything that you can call good or God or life or anything you want to call these. The universal principle of peace, joy, the emptiness, the void, the stillness, the silence. It doesn't matter what you call it. It is the pervading, the all-encompassing, the ever-present, the always-present state, the very primordial state in which everything arises. Because anything that you are aware of, like a thought, like my voice, like the sensation, even as good as joy and well-being in the body can be, the sensation of your hands, your lips, your nose, as good as that sensation can be and that joyfulness can be, there is still someone observing it. There is an intention, an intelligence, an observing intelligence. And that is truly what you are. And that intelligence that is now hearing the sound of my voice, that has been aware of every single thing that has ever occurred, that one single aware, spacious consciousness is there prior to any object, even if the object is well-being. It is I am aware of well-being. I am aware of the sound. I am aware of the fan. I am aware of the thoughts. But from the sensations of well-being, all the way up to the most disturbing states of anger, fear, frustration, turmoil, whether it's somebody screaming in your face at a traffic jam or some angry, crazy drug addict or something that's completely out of his mind on the street, causing some kind of weird confrontation. Always is there an awareness of that. And the question is, what do you put your awareness to? Or you want to call it attention? Let's call it attention. What does your attention go to? Does it go to the well-being of your body, even when you're sitting at work or doing some activity in the kitchen? Like the Zen used to do, all the Zen Buddhists used to practice this with everything they did. When they were cooking, cleaning, making their bed, walking from one point to the other, even moving their hand towards picking up the teacup would be a Zen moment, because it's a moment that you can have your attention on the well-being, the goodness, the joy, the bliss of the inner body, and the silence of the beautiful state of being, and knowing that you are aware of that, and that which you're aware of is not you, because you are the one perceiving that which you're perceiving. And so it doesn't matter what you're aware of, but it certainly matters if you get identified with it and believe much in it, and then that turmoil situation, that fighting situation, that stressful situation, which usually is your own thoughts, fueled by the emotional pain body, which is called emotions, if you wish. And then that becomes the main point of focus, the main attention. And of course, then you suffer, and that's where the world is right now, where the individuals are and where at the collective level we are. We need ever more, ever faster, ever whatever, as long as it's more, distractions. But in fact, at the same moment, you could just be focusing on the well-being that you are. You see, because if I now ask you, like I do sometimes in these exercises, I say, can you see your car in your mind, in your inner eye of your mind? You can see your car. You know what your car looks like. And you look what your front door of your house looks like. You could even see Obama's face probably in front of you. And of course, most of us are visually inclined, but not always as much. But you can even see, like I say sometimes, Mickey Mouse. You know, he had these white little gloves. And Mickey Mouse is sitting on a little bicycle. You could see it all in your head, right? In your mind. You don't even know where it takes place. It's a kind of a weird magic. It's almost black magic. Because I say, can you see the face of one of your children? In the inner eye, you can see it. You can see the face of one of your children. Where is it taking place? We don't really know. And you can also see the well-being inside of your hands. And I could take you back to Mickey Mouse with his little white gloves, riding his bicycle, through one of the famous streets that you know, because I don't know where you've been, so you just say you know, you can put any street to it, and you can see these things. Weird is how it is, but you can see your phone, you can see your husband or your wife or your boyfriend or your children. You can also go to your sensation again. So I have immediately shown that we are free-willed beings. I took you by just asking you to look at something, Mickey Mouse or your sensation hands, from one place to the other, and you were not bound to any of these places. Nothing made you have to stay with the depressive thoughts, the worries. Nothing made you, because you're free to just shift to the well-being. However, due to, mostly for most of us, decades of conditioning, decades of wrong training by our parents and our school teachers, and decades of movies and nonsense that is all pointed us outwards and outwards and outwards, and more objects and more thinking and more thought, just keeping busy with these things. We are now lost almost the capacity to be content with this quiet, still and silent place in which you are free, happy, fulfilled, joyous. And so we use some techniques. Techniques of satsang, techniques of guided meditation, techniques of meditation. And really all that we're really doing is, for most of you who have followed some yoga, I know some of you have, and I've spoken about yoga before. Sadly, yoga in the West has reduced itself to almost just physical stretching, but real yoga was the practice of asanas, which is, again, meditation techniques. Asanas means really postures. They come from the Sanskrit word as. And as really means to sit, but it really means a posture. But it is not only a physical posture. The physical posture always was only as an assistant to the mental posture. In other words, to sit in a certain position, not just physically, and holding that position sometimes for as long as you can. In Ashtanga yoga especially, they go to trying to go as long as they can. But that posture was only to hold, to help you again, to anchor your attention to the posture of no thought. In other words, disciplining again the mind by not letting it go off into the past, into the future, into all the thoughts, and constantly going off as an undisciplined dog that doesn't know how to sit still and runs off after every rabbit and every bird and every sound it hears. But actually training the dog, just like dog training, training the mind and getting the mind back on a leash. That's what the real asanas of yoga were meant to do. In the West, they went all to the physical, but the meaning still, for some, they know what the real asana was for, which is to sit still, and doesn't mean just sit still with the body, but to sit still with the mind and not have it go off into these places that will always lead to suffering. Until the mind is tamed, until the mind is quiet again, and until the mind becomes the servant of awareness, the servant of consciousness, the servant of being, the servant of what you truly are, your true state, your true nature, that quiet, still, all-encompassing, unified field of consciousness in which you are one with the entire universe and at rest, at peace. That placeless place, that empty space, that conscious awareness, that aware, beautiful, silent, quiet place that you are without the objects intruding by their own will, intruding into that space and dragging awareness across endless thoughts, endless worries about the future and the past. So the asanas are to sit in a meditative posture. It used to be only one asana, which is basically cross-legged, straight spine. Didn't even matter much where you put your hands, as long as the body is comfortable. And then you do not move, and it means you do not move just physically, but you do not move mentally off into a place that's not here, away from the silence. You do not move away from the silence. You hold that space, and you hear the sounds, you may feel the sensations, and you may have one of two of those anchors, but you hold that asana in the quiet, silent, aware space of knowing that you're aware. You are aware of being aware. Everybody is aware, but very few people are aware that they're aware, and therefore they're not consciously aware. Animals are aware all the time. That's why they can, one sound, and even a sleeping cat will know, and you see its ears move. But we have to be aware of being aware, and we have to practice that again, and therefore we use meditation, we use satsang, we use asanas, we use yoga, and properly used yoga, even the physical positions that are changing, are used to keep you with the breath, to keep you with the sensations of the body, to keep you present, balanced, grounded, aware, and preferably silent, so that the mind has got a job to do, but no more than simply being where it is. Simply being the servant of awareness. So in reality, satsang and meditation and yoga and all these practices, and all spiritual practices for that matter, when it comes to the final point, the refined essence, even the religions originally were nothing but satsangs. There were sages and teachers speaking about this and reminding you of your true nature, and reminding you that only the mind and emotions and the unresolved pain body can take you away from that, and so that you could rest again and come home to the Father, right? I and the Father am one. There's only one I in the universe, and I am it, which is the I that is aware. So don't call me I. I'm not speaking only about I. I'm speaking about the one I, which is the same I in you as in me, as in every animal and in every other thing. And if there's any other species in the whole universe, the awareness looking through those eyes or whatever tools they have, ears and sensors or sonar or whatever the animals have or creatures have, whatever is aware of whatever object is arising is the one awareness, the one God, the one Allah, the one true being, the one cosmic, universal being of life itself. And in that being, resting in that being, really being quietly resting in a being, it will be intimated to you. Not through words necessarily, although they may convert into words later, through insights and realizations. In that quiet space, you will actually enter into the place, the placeless place, the original place, in which all the connections with the whole universe will be intimated to you, and you will know that I am that. Before I take on the body, before I take on the thoughts, before I take on the jobs and the worries about my money and my kids and my this, before any of those objects, I, the pure aware space, is what I am and is what everything else comes from. It's the unified field, which they now call in quantum physics. It's the one energy source out of which everything in the entire universe arises. That is not intellectually, that has to be known directly by sitting still and silent and merging with what you are before any of these other things become so important and distract you from this placeless place, this good, quiet, silent, joyous, beautiful place of inner stillness. And only when you all are sure, because you have rested there deeply enough, often enough, will the full release of this deeper wisdom, which is not knowledge, definitely not information, it's not even knowledge, it becomes the wisdom of the direct knowledge, which they used to call Gnostic knowledge, the Gnosis. Gnosis was direct knowledge without any interval. No interval of time needed for any words to be uttered. It's just instant insight, and you're one, and you know it deeply within. And only when we know, as a species, hopefully we get to some point of a majority, a tipping point where maybe 10 or 15% of the people on the planet may reach this state. It's enough to tip the entire thing to another direction. Because when you really do know that you're not separate, that I and you and all the bodies of the animals and all the bodies of the trees and are all one, then only when you're absolutely sure that you're one, because you've realized it not intellectually but through the being of this silent space. And that releasing that wisdom to you directly through what we could call realization or insight, can we start living individually more peaceful, with our own minds and our own situations in our daily lives, and as a collective species on this planet, if you wish, whatever this planet may be, whether it's just a manifestation of consciousness or some kind of weird hologram, whatever we're living in. But knowing that, first of all, I, awareness, am the source and everything comes from this. Because science will always tell you the opposite. Science has a wrong idea and claims that physical universe is there first, come from the Big Bang, was created out of some, mystery Big Bang. And out of this tiny little dot, as big as a little speck of a grain of sand, came everything. That's what science claims. And then these gases and these materials and all these elements were just floating around and it just happened to come together and turn into these suns and galaxies and all these things. And it suddenly happened to be one planet around the sun that was just far enough for, that when the volcanoes quieted down, and suddenly this little animal came, this one single-celled organism. And from that, all these other things came, and finally we crawled out of the ocean onto our legs and feet, and finally this brain was suddenly involved by just coincidence, just haphazard, wacky, stupid chemicals out of this Big Bang, which is no intelligence behind it at all, which is what science basically believes. Generally speaking, there are exceptions, but they're usually outcasts. And suddenly something came, and out of the brain of the human we had now consciousness. And now we have this reflective, self-conscious consciousness. But it is exactly the opposite. Everything, including the physical universe, which we call physical universe, which now quantum physics has proven, is nothing but fluctuating energy fields. And we can't find any solid matter anywhere, but just more space and space and space. Endless emptiness. Out of this consciousness arose the phenomena or the effects of this physicality. And yes, you want to keep biology, keep it. You want to keep physics, keep it. You want to keep chemistry, keep it. But it just explains the mechanics of consciousness. How consciousness functions When water touches fire and what happens, it's not a fact of physicality, it's a phenomena of consciousness. And once you know that you are that, by resting in it, of course it's good to listen to things like I'm speaking and other teachers that teach stuff like this, and sages and gurus and whatever you want to call them, masters and all of these. It's good to listen and read. But finally, only by merging with this quiet state, losing the attention or the interest in the phenomenal world of thinking and the physical, and being able to be comfortably resting in this quiet, silent place without the need of emotional and mental continuity. In other words, to drop everything and be in this next level of silence. Because this is truly what you are. This is the higher levels, if you wish to call it that. It is the fundamental level of which everything arises out of the universe. Everything in the universe, everything that we can see, hear, touch, feel, taste, is nothing but an effect of this consciousness. And in fact, it is very obvious. Because if I am aware of the universe, I must first be aware. I must be there first, awareness, for anything to be seen, heard, or tasted. There must be I first. There must be awareness first for it to be aware of anything at all. And so anything you're ever aware of must be secondary to what you are, which is the awareness itself. That on which it takes place, that in which it takes place, that which out of which it takes place. You are that very presence, that very awareness, out of which and from which and as which everything is made. And so you have to come home. At some point, if you want the rest, if you want the peace, if you're really ready to merge again and be at peace, be at home, you have to return back into the heart. Not the physical heart, but the heart of awareness, the heart of silence, the heart of stillness. And only when you've seen enough of this world, when you've had enough pains, enough afflictions, when you've seen all the weird shows and the Pokemon Go's and the people that run underneath cars because they're running away from being in this quiet, silent place, only when you individually have had enough will you be ready to come home into the silent space and merge with the deeper, truer, pre-existent, the prema, the original state.